This happened this summer before my senior year of college. My friend group rented a house on a lake for a week in July. There were 6 of us, 3 guys, 3 girls. The house was this old 2-story place set back from the road on about half an acre of land, right on the water. The nearest neighbor was probably a quarter mile down the shore. No streetlights, no traffic, just trees and water and quiet. The first few days were perfect. Swimming, fishing off the dock, drinking on the porch. Exactly what you want a lake trip to be. We were having the time of our lives. On the 3rd night, I couldn't sleep. It was hot and the upstairs bedrooms didn't have great AC. I went downstairs around 1 in the morning to get water from the kitchen. The house was dark. Everyone else was asleep. I could hear the lake through the screen door. Bugs and frogs and that rhythmic sound water makes when it laps against a dock. I was standing at the sink filling a glass when I looked out the kitchen window. The window faced the side yard, toward the tree line about 40 feet from the house. There was enough moonlight to see the shapes of things. The grill, the picnic table, the trees. And there was a person standing at the edge of the trees. I almost didn't see them. They were standing perfectly still just inside the shadow of the tree line, facing the house. I only noticed because something about the shape was wrong. Trees don't have shoulders. I stared for a few seconds. My brain did that thing where it tries to explain what you're seeing. It's a tree stump. It's a shadow. It's a deer standing weird. But the longer I looked, the more obviously it was a person. I could see the outline of a head, arms at their sides, standing still. I stepped back from the window. My heart was going, but I wasn't panicking yet. Could be a neighbor. Could be a drunk fisherman. Could be someone who rented a nearby cabin and got turned around in the dark. There were explanations. I went to the living room and looked out the front window. The driveway was empty except for our 2 cars. No other vehicles, no flashlights, no sounds. I went back to the kitchen, looked out the window again. They were closer, maybe 20 feet from the house now. Still facing the window. Still completely still. Before we continue the story, please take 2 seconds to subscribe and like the video. Now back to it. I woke up my friend Jake, shook him awake and told him someone was outside. He was groggy and annoyed, but he came downstairs with me. We went to the kitchen window together. The tree line was empty, no one there. Jake looked at me like I was an idiot. He said I probably saw a deer. I told him deer don't stand on 2 legs and face houses. He said I was half asleep and seeing things. He went back to bed. I stood in that kitchen for another 20 minutes, watching the tree line. Nothing moved. Eventually I went upstairs and lay in bed staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. The next morning at breakfast, I mentioned it to the group. Everyone kind of brushed it off. One of the girls said it was probably a raccoon on a stump. Another friend made a joke about Blair Witch. Nobody took it seriously. That night, I made sure every door was locked. I checked the windows. I pulled the curtains shut in the kitchen. I went to bed around midnight. At some point during the night, my friend Sarah, who was sleeping in the downstairs bedroom, woke everyone up. She was standing in the hallway in her pajamas, white as a sheet. She said she woke up because she felt cold air on her face. Her bedroom window was open. She was sure she'd closed it before bed. The screen was pushed out and lying in the grass below the window. Jake checked the outside. No footprints that he could see. The ground was dry and hard from a week without rain. He put the screen back in and closed the window. He said it probably wasn't latched right and the wind pushed it out. There was no wind that night. The air was completely still. I remember because the lake was like glass. Nobody said anything about it at breakfast the next morning. But I noticed Sarah moved her stuff upstairs and slept on the couch in the hallway for the rest of the trip. On our last night, I woke up at about 3 in the morning. I don't know what woke me. I just suddenly had my eyes open, that feeling where your body is alert before your brain catches up. I lay there in the dark listening. The house was quiet, but outside, very faintly, I could hear footsteps. Not on the gravel driveway, on the wooden porch that wrapped around the front and side of the house. Slow, careful, the kind of steps someone takes when they're trying not to make noise but can't avoid it because the boards are old. Step, pause, step, pause. They move from the front of the porch toward the side, toward the kitchen, toward Sarah's old bedroom window. I got out of bed. I went to the hallway. Jake's door was closed. The girls' room was closed. Sarah was asleep on the couch. I stood at the top of the stairs and listened. The footsteps had stopped. Total silence, just the lake and the bugs and my heartbeat. I didn't go downstairs. I stood at the top of those stairs until it started getting light outside. I watched the shadows change on the walls as the sun came up. I didn't hear anything else. We packed up that morning and left by 10. Nobody talked about it on the drive home. I brought it up once a few weeks later and Sarah changed the subject. Jake said I was remembering wrong. I looked up the rental listing a few months after the trip. It had been taken down. No reviews, no photos, just gone. I'd never been back to that lake. I don't rent houses in the woods anymore. And every summer when my friends start talking about getting a cabin somewhere, I always say I'm busy because I know what I saw and I know what I heard. And the thing nobody wants to talk about is this. We were there for 5 nights. I only noticed someone standing in the trees on night 3. Sarah's window was pushed open on night 4, but nobody checked the first 2 nights. Nobody was looking. Nobody was awake. We have no idea if someone was there the whole time. So I used to swim at the public pool in my neighborhood almost every night during the summer. This was like 2 summers ago. The pool closed at 9, but they left the gates unlocked until 10 for people who wanted to use the picnic area. After 10, they locked everything and the lights went off on a timer around 10:30. I started going at 9:15, 9:30, right as everyone was leaving. The lifeguards would be gone, the families would be packing up. By 9:45, it was usually just me. I'd swim laps for half an hour in the quiet and then dry off and walk home. My apartment was 3 blocks away. I know I wasn't supposed to swim without a lifeguard, I know that. But it was summer, it was hot, the water was right there, and I'd been swimming my whole life. I wasn't worried about drowning. I wasn't worried about anything. One night in mid-July, I got there around my usual time. The pool was empty. The underwater lights were still on, which gave everything this blue-green glow. The deck chairs were stacked. The snack bar was shuttered. No one around. I dropped my towel on a chair and got in, swam a few laps, floated on my back, looked at the stars. Normal stuff. After about 20 minutes, I stopped at the shallow end to catch my breath. I was standing in about 4 feet of water, wiping my eyes, and I looked toward the fence line. There was somebody standing on the other side of the fence. The pool is surrounded by a 6-foot chain-link fence with green privacy slats in it. You can't see through it from most angles, but there's one section near the back, by the utility shed, where some of the slats had fallen out, and through that gap I could see a person standing on the sidewalk looking through the fence. At the pool. At me. I couldn't see much detail. It was dark on their side. Just a shape. A person standing still, facing the gap in the fence, watching. I got out of the pool, grabbed my towel, dried off as fast as I could. Kept my eyes on that section of the fence the whole time. The person didn't move, just stood there. I walked to the gate on the opposite side of the pool, the one closest to the street. I didn't run, I just walked fast and didn't look back. I told myself it was nothing. Somebody walking their dog who stopped to look at the pool, a kid from the neighborhood being nosy. It was summer. People are outside late, it meant nothing. I went back the next night. Same time, same routine. I got in the water, did my laps, and when I came up for air, I checked the fence. They were there, same spot, same gap, same silhouette, standing completely still, watching. This time I noticed something I hadn't noticed before. They were close to the fence. Not standing back on the sidewalk. They were right up against it. I could see fingers curled through the chain link. I got out immediately. I didn't even grab my towel. I walked straight to the gate and left. I skipped the next 3 nights. I told myself I was done swimming at night. It wasn't worth the stress. I'd go during the day like a normal person, but by the end of the week it was 100 degrees and my apartment didn't have air conditioning and the pool was right there. So I went back. Friday night, 9:30. The pool was empty. I checked the fence before I got in. I walked the entire perimeter. I looked through every gap in the slats. Nobody. I got in, swam, started to relax. Told myself I'd been paranoid. I was floating on my back in the deep end when I heard the gate open. Not the main gate, the utility gate. The one by the shed, the one near the broken slats. It was a metal gate with a latch and it made a specific scraping sound when it swung open. I stood up in the water. The deep end was over my head, so I grabbed the edge of the pool and looked toward the utility gate. It was open, swinging slightly, like someone had just come through it. But I couldn't see anyone on the deck. The pool lights lit up the water, but everything beyond the edge of the deck was dark. The chairs, the shed, the bathrooms, all shadows. I pulled myself out of the pool on the opposite side and I left. I didn't walk. I ran. Barefoot, soaking wet, no towel, no sandals, straight through the main gate and down the street to my apartment. I never went back to that pool at night. During the day, sure, when there were lifeguards and families and kids screaming, and everything was normal and safe. But never at night. A few weeks later, I was at the pool during the afternoon. Normal Saturday, families everywhere. I was laying on a deck chair reading when I noticed one of the maintenance guys replacing slats in the fence, the same section where the gap had been. I walked over and asked him about it, just casually, and he said someone had been pulling the slats out. Not one or two. Several of them. Over a period of weeks. He'd replaced them, and a few days later they'd be pulled out again. Always the same section, the section that gave the best view of the pool from the sidewalk. He said he thought it was kids being destructive. I didn't say anything. But I looked at the section of fence he was working on, and I noticed something I hadn't seen before. On the inside of the fence, on the ground, the grass was worn flat, not from foot traffic along the sidewalk, from the inside, like someone had been standing there, close to the fence, right up against it, standing in the same spot so many times that the grass had stopped growing, inside the fence, not outside. They hadn't just been watching through the gap. At some point, they'd been inside the fence, standing on the pool deck, in the dark. While I was in the water, I told a friend about it, and he said I should report it. I didn't know what I'd report. A person standing near a fence, a worn patch of grass, a gate that opened. I had nothing concrete. I had no description. I had no evidence of anything except a feeling. But feelings exist for a reason, and the feeling I had, standing in that pool in the dark, hearing that gate scrape open and seeing nobody on the deck, was the feeling of being in the wrong place at the wrong time with someone who had been waiting for exactly that.